Okay, stay with me here. I ended this series a few months ago because I didn't think there were any great top 40 songs after 1994. Well, after over 1,000 requests and after months of reflection, I admit I was dead wrong. Man, most of the songs in today's yearly countdown were reluctantly recorded and were either not intended to be a single at all or were an embarrassment for the artists that created it. That's what they thought. They ended up being complete masterworks, including a song about a traumatized boy who watched a man he thought was his real father hurt his mother night after night. He turned it into a song years before he hit it big, and it was just too personal. He didn't want to put it out. And then there was the song that MTV initially banned and then edited a lyric by playing a word backwards that confused the hell out of listeners and actually changed the meaning of the song on the radio. And then there was the pissed off fan that offered a famous band a multi-million-dollar fortune just to go away because they couldn't match the majesty of their perfect debut album. Countdown, so many great songs and artists coming up next. Let's do it. Hey, music junkies. I got a special episode today after getting over 1,000 requests over the last few months. I'm going to do this episode. So for about 9 months, going back to last year, I counted down the best songs that hit the top 40 for every year from 1960 to 1994. I ended 94 back in August, and I couldn't imagine doing the 50s or beyond 94, so we ended it. But over the last several months, I've had so many requests to keep going, I decided to listen through a few of those years that I didn't ever intend to do, and I found a lot of great songs that I'd forgotten actually hit the top 40. So, against my better judgment here, I'm going to give it a shot and take it year by year to see if the songs measure up. In 1995, you had some great songs by everybody from Tom Petty to Annie Lennox to Pearl Jam, so many. Let's see what 1995 holds. We kick off the countdown of the top 10 songs of that year with a song that in my own hometown, the DJs were banned from uttering this band's name. The one-hit wonder, it's about an intellectual vegetarian and environmentalist. It's New Age Girl by Dead-Eye Dick at number 10. I mean, can you believe DJs in southeastern Idaho couldn't say the name Dead-Eye Dick on the radio? It's crazy. Now, the story behind New Age Girl goes like this. It started out as a guitar riff, great riff, that Caleb Gelati, one of the guys in Dead-Eye Dick, came up with while washing the shampoo out of his hair in the shower. And by some kind of freaky luck, the song evolved from a local favorite to a national sensation after it got picked up for the Dumb and Dumber soundtrack.
New Age Girl, tell us what she's like. Environmentalist girl.
Besides the song being hilarious and super catchy, it helped that it was centered around a girl named Mary, just like the female lead Mary Swanson in the movie.
Okay, look on the...
Oh yeah, it's right here. Samsonite. I was way off.
Despite getting panned by film critics, Dumb and Dumber was a box office hit, and the exposure from key placement in that movie grabbed interest from some of the biggest names in the music business, including legendary Clive Davis. He was the head of ERASED Records at the time. Now, get this, the band turned Davis down, as well as other major label offers, and they just stuck with their independent label, Ichiban Records. Track about a girl named Mary Moon. It first hit big on local radio in New Orleans and then spread to Atlanta before being released on their 1994 album, A Different Story. Now, things got a little complicated later when Ichiban went bankrupt, and the song briefly vanished from streaming services. Actually, yeah, you can't get the original song on any streaming service that I found, even though it was one of the songs of 1995, or late 94 into 95. Well, to bring it back, the band released a re-recorded version in 21, making it available again for fans.
She's a vegetarian.
And I gotta say, I understand why it happens, but I can't stomach the re-recorded versions. I can always tell the difference. The original sound that made the song a hit, it just can't be duplicated. What about you? Let me know in the comments. Caleb, who later took a job in the movie industry after the quick demise of Dead-Eye Dick, said that the Mary Moon character in the song was inspired by an ex-girlfriend. Though he used an alias in the lyrics, he mentioned that his ex had given him some crystals, and actually crystals to his parents.
Has a crystal necklace, she spend a lot of cash. Her vibes are rather reckless.
When the song came out, a number of real Mary Moons reached out to him, often showing their driver's license to prove their identity. New Age Girl had that one clever yet questionable line that cost it a lot of airplay, along with the name of the band. It was the second half of the lyric, she don't eat meat.
Don't eat meat, but sure like the bone.
Even today, there are many that get offended by that line. New Age Girl, Dead-Eye Dick's only claim to fame, went to number 27 on the Billboard Hot 100 And it always felt like, to me, like a discarded car song. Great song. Next on our countdown of the top 10 songs of 1995, it's No More I Love Yous, a solo gem by Annie Lennox at number 9. Oh, what a great song. No More I Love Yous is one of those songs that many people don't realize it's actually a cover. Annie Lennox's version is a remake of a track by the group The Lover Speaks from 1986. It was a project inspired by Roland Barthes' Lover's Discourse. Now, the origin story is that the original song was a mid-chart single stalling at number 58 in the UK. A mild murmur on the charts at best there, but Annie chose it for her 1995 album Medusa because she believed it deserved to be a bigger moment. And she thought it was a very powerful interpretation piece, and she was right. Annie called the song By the Lover Speaks a small piece of genius, and I agree with that. The core idea of the original, about the finality of love when one person says I love you and the other can't reply, it explores the moment of lost innocence with the lyrics wrapped in a gothic, dramatic tone to convey that intense, emotional experience that only Annie can do. I mean, it's a song that may take the cake for the biggest earworm in history. I mean, once you think of its first sung vocal, the da-da-da-da-da-da, I mean, it's in your head for days, and it's not a bad thing. No More I Love Yous was co-written by the two principals of The Lover Speaks, Joseph Hughes and David Freeman. After a day of working on material at Hughes' flat, Freeman bicycled back to his place, and along the way, the chorus started ringing in his head. It just came in. It was over and over again. No More I Love Yous, the language is leaving me. That's what came into his head. And he was so excited about that lyric, that masterpiece lyric, that he turned around and went straight back to Hughes' place to work on the song with his friend. No More I Love Yous, it's the kind of heady expression that I would expect an interesting artist like Annie Lennox to be attracted to. Very cool that the song was recognized and appreciated by an artist that could not only do justice to the initial creation, but could use their stature to take it to a whole new audience to fall in love with. Annie's version of No More I Love Yous moved to number 23 on the Billboard Hot 100. It should have been a bigger hit. It had sweeping success internationally. It went to number 2 in the UK and number 1 in Spain, Italy, Poland, and Canada. Phenomenal song. Coming in at number 8, we got a band that made such a perfect debut album that none of their albums that followed could hold a candle to that. And one hater, who was actually a fan, offered the band a small fortune to just go away after that. It's Weezer with Buddy Holly. Now, as we enter the backstory vault of Weezer's Buddy Holly, I mean, it all stemmed from a real-life moment that Rivers Cuomo lived through. It was his friends poking fun at his platonic Asian girlfriend that the opening line that teed up the infectious spirit of the song, "What's with these homies dissing my girl? Why do they got a front?" That's where that came from. The chorus started really as something wildly different with lines like, "OEO, you look just like Ginger Rogers, and you move just like Fred Astaire." Those were the lyrics at one time. This was before Rivers swapped in Buddy Holly and then Mary Tyler Moore after noticing that he looked a lot like one of rock's first icons, you know, looking in the mirror there. Rivers played around with a bunch of celebrities from pop culture in the song, and the name that really fit best with the melody was the lovable Mary Tyler Moore. Here's a funny confession, though. Rivers actually felt that Buddy Holly sounded really cheesy, and it didn't fit the Blue album at all, till the relentless push of the album's producer, Rick Ocasek, of The Cars changed everything. Now, from the jump, Ocasek believed Buddy Holly was an undeniable smash, and he wasn't subtle about it either. He put sticky notes all around the studio reading, "We want Buddy Holly." It was until Rivers finally surrendered his resistance. He wasn't going to put it on the record. Ocasek was also the guiding force behind the song's infectious tempo change. The original 1993 demo of Buddy Holly, if you've ever heard, I'll play a little here. That was much slower, and it had a lower tone compared to the final upbeat album version. It was sped up during mastering, and Buddy Holly became one of Weezer's biggest hits, climbing to number 6 in Canada, number 17 on the Billboard Pop Airplay chart, and number 2 on the alternative chart in the US. And now for the story of the fan. The Blue album was so beloved, and that's because it was all killer, no filler, right? But after that first album, and the second, the first decade of the 2000s, more often than not, fans felt like Weezer was just like going through the motions, phoning it in. I mean, the success was there, no doubt. By 2010, Weezer had notched 16 top 20 hits on the alternative charts, including 4 number 2s and 3 number 1 hits. However, the band seemed like a shadow of their former selves, and who could live up to the Blue album? Well, in 2010, one loudmouth anti-fan, he'd had enough. A Seattle resident named James Burns started a crowdfunding campaign to put a permanent end to Weezer. He proposed to raise $10 million to bribe the band into retirement using a now-defunct fundraising website. Said Burns, and I quote, "I think that they're pretty much horrible and always have been, even in the early 90s. But this isn't about me. This is about the Weezer fans. They're our brothers, our sisters, our friends, our lovers. And every year, Rivers Cuomo swears that he's changed. And, that their new album is the best thing that he's done since Pinkerton. And what happens? Another pile of crap like Beverly Hills or I'm Your Daddy." Burns called it an abusive relationship and said he was tired of his friends being disappointed by Weezer albums that totally sucked. He reasoned that if everyone who had bought to Weezer's second album, Pinkerton, pitched in like $12, that they could reach their goal. Now, this stirred up all kinds of media attention. It even got a response from band member Patrick Wilson, who posted on Twitter, "If they can make it 20 million, we'll do the deluxe breakup." 10 million, 20 million, it wouldn't have been enough. As it turns out, Burns' campaign crashed and burned with very little financial support. Not everybody felt the way he did. All right, back to our countdown at number 7 on our top 10 songs on 1995. It's a track that wasn't a massive hit, but it was the big 90s hit by an 80s new wave band that I couldn't get enough of. How about you? Tell Me When by the Human League. After a string of era-defining hits from 1982 through 1986, like these, but after that, the Human League hit a cold spell. Now, Tell Me When, co-written by lead singer Phil Oakey and Paul C. Bennett, it was the first single from their album Octopus. This brought the trio back to the international spotlight. Phil Oakey and his bandmates Joanne Catherell and Susan Ann Sully recorded demos of most of the material for Octopus for Virgin Records. Actually, Tell Me When was one of those songs. But the label didn't dig what they heard. Phil bluntly admits that the demos were crap, mainly because the group wasn't strong at producing their own tracks yet. As they steadied themselves, though, the band found themselves pulled toward the analog resurgence, largely thanks to Paul Beckett. They've been wary of chasing a trend, but Beckett championed analog synths hard, urging them to dig into the rack of synthesizers. Phil reveals that he, Joanne, and Susan needed a kick in the pants. They'd grown stale and a cloud of doubt hung over them, fed by the label's attitude and not having a hit for a while. Beckett's push, plus that raw, real frustration, it helped shake them out of that slump and set the stage for the redemptive success of Tell Me When. As I mentioned, Tell Me When was not a major hit. It only went to number 31 on the Billboard Hot 100, but it really connected with those around the world. And it connected with me, maybe because it brought back the new wave synth sound that I loved in the 80s and the middle of the 90s. Even though it wasn't big in the States, Tell Me When was a bona fide top 10 in many countries around the world, including Ireland, the Netherlands, Scotland, and in the UK. Our countdown of the top 10 songs of 1995 rolls on with The World I Know by Collective Soul at number 6. The World I Know isn't your typical rock track. It's a wake-up call about compassion and seeing the world through someone else's eyes. Frontman Ed Roland had a rare day off from Collective Soul's tour with Aerosmith. It was a break that felt like stepping into a different dimension entirely. The tour bus rolled into New York, and instead of retreating to the hotel, he laced up his shoes and wandered out into the buzzing streets. He wandered around the gritty edges of Times Square in a place that still wore its rougher edges back then. Far from the polished, glossy image it would become later. As he walked around, the city staged a stark drama right before his very eyes. People living on the edge of survival in cardboard and blankets. While elsewhere in the same blocks, luxury lounged in gleaming fur and chauffeured limousines. Those were his words. The contrasts didn't just exist, they pressed in, forcing Ed to see beyond his own routine and vanity. It was a real snapshot of the world as it stood. He stood, really, in that moment. Now, that stroll in the Big Apple did more than open Ed's eyes. It turned what he witnessed into a reflective song about self-pity, attention, and the choice to look outward rather than curl inward. The World I Know would become a meditation on compassion. Now, Manny pointed out that it sounded like another massive song that would be a big hit the very next year. I asked Ed about this in our interview, and his response was perfect.
And definitely an influence on Iris. It's just such a powerful song.
You know what's a beautiful thing is I was talking to Elliot Easton, the lead guitarist from the Cars, my favorite lead guitarist of all time. Probably my favorite band. Like, I just love the Cars. I love the Beatles, I love the Stones, I love all that, but the Cars were like right in my zone when I was growing up. When I was like, dude, if I ever took anything from you, I apologize. And he said one of the greatest things ever. He goes, dude, we didn't invent the wheel. We're just keeping the tread on it, buddy. And I was like, how cool is that?
Oh, yeah. That's exactly
you know what?
right.
And that's the way it should be, man. And thank you, Elliot.
The World I Know was a #1 track on the Adult Alternative chart, #1 on the Mainstream Rock chart, number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100, and #1 in Canada. Right halfway through our countdown at number 5, the top 10 songs of 95, we've got a track that is one of the most private and emotional of the entire decade. Here's the background behind Better Man by Pearl Jam. So Pearl Jam's Better Man is one of those songs that feels intimate and universal at the same time. Written by Eddie Vedder in his younger days, it starts from a very personal place, about a woman stuck in a bad relationship. It was a dynamic that Eddie Vedder saw echoed in his own mother's life. He said he wishes he never had a reason to write this song because the inspiration came from a very painful personal lens. The backstory goes deeper still, though. Eddie at one point thought about Better Man as a track he might never release at all. He even toyed with giving it away for a charity compilation. It was really something he went through to get through the emotional space. But Brendan O'Brien, Pearl Jam's producer, felt something in the song that needed to be heard. When Brendan told Eddie that he felt the song would be a surefire hit, that made Eddie even more reluctant to record the song. I mean, any fan of Pearl Jam knows full well that Eddie never cared about stardom. And the idea of such a personal song being a vehicle for commercialism was initially appalling to Vedder. Eddie had written the song well before he fronted Pearl Jam. Brendan pushed and he pushed and he pushed until Eddie loosened up, and the song found its home on Vitalogy, becoming a major hit as Brendan predicted. Now, it was Brendan that also presented the idea of using a pump organ on the track, a sound he thought was inspired by John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin. Behind the public success of Better Man, it's a window into Eddie Vedder's life, very personal. The moment he discovered the truth about his stepfather, whom he later learned wasn't his biological father only after the man's death. As you can imagine, it was a traumatic discovery for Eddie. The thread of that revelation, it echoes into the rest of the Vitalogy album and some of the stuff previous to that, including the stark narrative from Pearl Jam's debut album, Alive. Now, Better Man was never released as a commercial single in the US. And Pearl Jam were against the concept of having music videos at the time, but DJs started playing and it hit the top 40. It ultimately didn't matter about whether it was a single or not. Better Man rightly became a #1 hit on mainstream rock radio due to constant airplay, solidifying its position as one of the most iconic rock anthems of the 90s. All right, in at number 4, it's one of those songs. It was a massive pop hit that even the rockers and the metalheads had to admit was a great song. It can't be denied. I'm talking about Waterfalls by TLC. The moment that Waterfalls by TLC came on the radio, you just couldn't resist it. TLC, the trio of Tion Watkins, Lisa Lopez, and Rosanda Thomas, they were in the studio thinking about more than just hooks, about how recording a song, that could carry a warning without shouting it in people's faces, without hitting them over the head with it. And then came Waterfalls, a track that would ride the top of the charts and also pierce the heart of music in '95. The lyrics arrive with a mission, a direct nod to the AIDS epidemic, a topic society still treated like a whispered taboo, though Springsteen's Streets of Philadelphia had opened that up a little bit the year before.
Streets of Philadelphia.
I mean, the line about 3 letters, landing someone at their final resting place, that wasn't just clever wordplay. It was a bold confession.
3 letters took him to his final resting place.
A pop R&B group stepping onto a jagged edge and refusing to look away. It wasn't supposed to be easy. It was supposed to matter. Waterfalls is a story told in 2 voices. In the first verse, a young man ignores his mother's pleas to quit dealing drugs, a decision that spirals into tragedy at a street corner. The pain isn't shouted. It's painted with careful detail, the kind of scene you can see from a bus window or a cracked apartment hallway. A reminder that danger often wears sneakers and a smile. TLC, they didn't want to preach. As Tion T-Boz later put it, they wanted to get the message across without seeming like they were preaching. So they built the tale with human warmth, with relatable details, and a rhythm that let the message breathe. The result was a balance as delicate as a held breath, a powerful anti-violence and anti-drug stance wrapped in a melody that felt as big as the world it spoke to.
I seen a rainbow yesterday, but too many storms have come and gone, leaving a trace of not one.
Even a story of this kind of gravity isn't built in a vacuum. Clive Davis of ERASED Records listened to Waterfalls and heard something that felt a little too heavy. It was a valid concern, though. I mean, songs with cultural depth, they go against radio's rules of riding to the lowest common denominator. Yet TLC, backed by L.A. Reid, pressed on, insisting on the release and a video budget that could match the song's ambition. And man, the payoff was instant, but it was inevitable. I mean, Waterfalls, the first time you hear it, you know it's a smash. It became a major hit. Its vision undeniable in the glow of MTV screens as well as radio speakers. Although it wasn't without its controversy, Waterfalls had almost identical lyrics to a Paul McCartney solo song from a decade earlier. Did they rip it off?
Don't go jumping waterfalls.
Don't go chasing waterfalls. Please stick to.
No matter though, Waterfalls was massive, shooting to the pinnacle of the singles chart in New Zealand, Switzerland, and here on the Billboard Hot 100.
I know that you're gonna have it your way or nothing.
So much great music to reflect on from 1995. We're deep into the countdown of the top 10 from that year, and ranking at number 3 on the countdown is another classic earworm that can't be denied. Kiss from a Rose by Seal.
There used to be a graying tower alone on.
Seal's Kiss from a Rose started as this kind of oddball experimental track that he was actually too embarrassed to share. It was a 4-track multi-layered vocal experiment done years before he got his break, and he figured that it would never see the light of day, so it didn't matter. A friend tipped off his producer, Trevor Horn, though, who kept nudging Seal until he convinced him to release the song.
You became the light on the dark side.
Okay, so Seal was toying with an idea in the 1980s. working on a 4-track recorder because he couldn't play an instrument yet. Now, he wrote the song back in like 1988, and this is why he was living in a squat in London. He describes those days as very liberating. There was no pressure, just freedom to figure things out for himself. He didn't know how to play any instruments, like I said, so he sang the instrumental parts onto this 4-track tape as an experiment, and then he shoved that tape aside and he didn't think much about it. It was an experiment. When he went on to record his 1991 debut album, he didn't even consider it. As he constructed Kiss from a Rose, though, Seal tried to simulate an orchestra by laying multiple vocal tracks, but he was so embarrassed by how it sounded, he tucked the tape away in a corner, never planning to let the public hear it. Now, as a friend of Seal's heard the rough version of Kiss from a Rose by accident, and he told Trevor Horn about it, and Trevor wouldn't let it go. He kept bugging Seal to share the Rose song, and he eventually talked him into including it on the second album, Seal 2. And for the film connections, the track was first slotted to be included in the Never-Ending Story Part 3 in 1994. Yet that exposure didn't amount to anything, as the film was a disaster on arrival. But then when director Joel Schumacher heard it, he asked to use it for Batman Forever. It ended up playing over the end credits, and this was apparently because film executives were uncomfortable with it, so they put it at the end of the movie. But that exposure blasted the song onto the charts and turned it into a global phenomenon. Kiss from a Rose hit the jackpot for Seal around the world. It was a #1 smash in Australia, #2 in Canada, and #4 in the UK. In the US, Seal achieved a trifecta, grabbing #1 in adult contemporary, adult pop, and on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. All right, landing in at our bridesmaid position at #2 on the countdown, it's one of the most controversial songs of the 90s. You Don't Know How It Feels by Tom Petty. Tom Petty dropped a lead single off the LP Wildflowers, and right smack dab in the middle of the song's chorus is a line that stirred up a lot of trouble. Let's roll another joint.
Let's roll another joint and turn the red.
It's a line that fits the song's breezy, free-spirited mood, but in an era when radio and TV were still painting lines in the sand around drug references, it caused a real hornet's nest of activity. The moral gatekeepers, they were outraged. Some radio programmers were angry and fans cheered its bold authenticity. Tom Petty, he loved it all. He loved all the hubbub.
You don't know how it feels.
Most radio stations, especially the album rock stations, wanted to play Tom, unfiltered. So they edited and re-edited. Some stations simply cut out the word roll. Others chose to replace the whole line with something safer like let's hit another joint, which actually changed the meaning of the song entirely. It wasn't consistent at all, though. It made the track's broadcast feel like a game of telephone across the dial.
Let's hit another joint and turn the red.
The power of MTV had declined a little bit in 95, but it was still formidable. The network took censorship to a curious extreme, though. They didn't just bleep or blur. They spun the word joint backward, turning it into a sound that listeners teased as noosh. The result became a running joke amongst fans, the mysterious non-existent word lurking in the video's audio track.
Let's roll another joint and turn the red.
The result became a running joke amongst fans, the mysterious non-existent word lurking in the video's audio track. Tom was genuinely amused, almost gleeful that the song's content could spark such a splash. He reportedly felt elated that the track had stirred up so much conversation, viewing the whole episode as a funny, if not absurd, artifact of the times. Now, the one notable exception to the clampdown was The Late Show with David Letterman, where the performance aired uncensored, giving fans the full original line in all its unvarnished charm.
Let's roll another joint, turn the red.
That's why I love Dave, for other reasons. But after the dust settled on the lyrical controversy, Tom Petty won the MTV Video Music Award for Best Male Video in 95 and a Grammy for Best Male Rock Vocal Performance in 96. You Don't Know How It Feels, with its various edits, still scored well on the music charts, #3 in Canada, #13 on the Billboard Hot 100, and #1 on the mainstream rock chart. Sometimes you hear a song early on in your life and you dismiss it altogether only to hear it decades later, having gone through some things and being more mature, and it hits you over the head and makes you realize it's a freaking masterpiece. And that's how I feel about our number one song today. To start in 95, the Goo Goo Dolls from Buffalo, New York were at a very pivotal time that would dictate the future of the band. They were primarily known as an alternative rock band, but after 4 albums, the band fired their drummer, George Tatuska, and they're on the verge of being dropped by their record label. Now, their 5th album, that was released without any fanfare, and it looked like the Goos were not going to survive. Then a program director in Los Angeles happened to stumble across our number one tune on the countdown of the top 10 songs of 95. Crowning our countdown is Name by the Goo Goo Dolls. One of the main reasons why I finally got it, I finally realized that Name is such a compelling and moving song, is because it's one of those tracks that feels like it's telling you a story you've somehow lived. You've lived with. Feels like Goo Goo Dolls lead singer John Resnick totally gets me or gets you. John wrote it with a very personal compass pointed at his own childhood. The narrative centers on his sisters, the 2 women who raised him after a childhood shadowed by the loss of both parents, and a father who battled alcoholism. That line, "We're grown-up orphans who never knew their names," it's not just catchy fortune cookie poetry here. It's a window into a life where roots and names were scrambled by hardship, yet somehow continue to be fought for and established. It's difficult to put into words here, but it's almost as if you're proud of having a tough childhood, because it made you the person that you are today. There's a twist in the tale that makes Name feel even richer somehow, as if a few secrets are also tucked into an already powerfully emotive song. The title itself, and then the line, "And I won't tell no one your name." That came from a moment with someone who wasn't supposed to be a chapter in a love story at all. It's actually MTV VJ Kennedy.
I'm Kennedy, and coming up this hour, we've got videos from Gary Hoey. Gary Hoey?
Years after the song's release, that backstory surfaced in Kennedy's book, The Kennedy Chronicles. She recalls a flirtatious brief kiss and a series of phone calls, enough to spark a what-if moment, even though John was married at the time and nothing deeper ever happened from that. John, too, has spoken about it, noting in Kennedy's book a sense that the song was born out of a fleeting moment, rather than a grand narrative arc. You said it was pretty interesting to have a song inspired by a moment. He called it a very sweet song. It's a kind of line that makes you lean in a little closer, wondering how many songs that you've heard and were really born out of a single surprising instance rather than a long sweeping tale. I love that. In a small, almost hidden credit, though, John named Kennedy in the song credits by her real name, Lisa Montgomery. Now, that touch feels like a private wink to that moment that could have just drifted away, but decided to leave a trace in the music, and then he sang the words that every Gen Xer can relate to, especially as we pass into our middle age and beyond. And scars are souvenirs you never lose. The past is never far.
The past is never far.
Did you lose yourself somewhere out there? Did you get to be a star? And don't it make you sad to know that life is more than who we are? We grew up way too fast, and now there's nothing to believe, and reruns all become our history. A tired song keeps playing on a tired radio.
Song keeps playing on a tired radio.
And I won't tell no one your name. I mean, if that doesn't describe our generation, then I don't know what does.
I won't tell no one your name.
While the band was putting the Boy Named Goo album together, John Resnick had no idea Name would be a single at all. He didn't think it'd get noticed. He actually said that he put it in the middle of the record where he thought no one would find it. He thought it was just what people call a depth track at best. But Kevin Weatherly, the highly respected program director of K-Rock in Los Angeles, he discovered the song just from random listening and instantly gravitated to it. His interest led to airplay on K-Rock, and since the station was so influential, dozens of radio stations across the country followed suit, and the song became a surprise hit, elevating the status of the Goo Goo Dolls to a level they had never achieved up to that point and saving their career. Catapulted by the airplay on the world-famous K-Rock, Name vaulted to #1 on the alternative rock chart and crossed over to #1 on the mainstream rock chart and went all the way to #5 on the Billboard Hot 100. Here's what John told me about it.
Yeah, it was kind of a thing. God, it's so hard to just put it into words. You know?
I know.
It was just one of those things when it came out. I mean, you look at the paper and you're like, oh wow, there it is. I mean, and it's hard to describe what it's about. I mean, there's some stuff truly about my upbringing, you know, and the feel of where I was from, you know, and looking back, you know, 15 years later at what it was like to sort of be on your own at such an early age.
Tell me your name.
So there you have it, our top 10 of 95. So what are your memories of these songs? What are your thoughts on these songs? Should we continue? Should we try 96, 97? There's actually some great songs in there. Should we do the 50s? Let me know below, because I've gotten a lot of requests for this and I couldn't ignore it any longer. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.